Hi there. Welcome to day 14, the last day of my little foray here into conversations about um, creative people, the arts world, and the use of artificial intelligence, which is a topic that is kind of blowing up all over the place, and that I got interested in specifically because of the project that I'm running on Kickstarter that probably by the time you see this episode will now be done, called 575, the science fictional explorations of the elusive haiku, which is a haiku unto itself and was just kind of fun. My name is Ron Collins. I'm a science fiction writer, and so each of my haiku were all science fictional. And in my background in this, my conversation is based on the fact that that project took all of my haiku and used those as prompt fodder for artificial intelligence generation of illustrations. And so I thought that given that I'm doing that, I thought I would spend some time talking about this artificial intelligence world and how it affects us as creative people, right? Because it's kind of all the rage right now. Definitely within the worlds that I'm working on, working in, right? And I think the way I would categorize the things that I'm watching right this minute, literally every day, it seems like some different tweak of something is going on within the community, right? There's lots of questions across the entire span of creative elements, right? And I'm talking music, I'm talking the visual arts, and I'm talking writers, right? Because I'm not as familiar with the things going on in the music field. I don't know the tools, but I know the tools in the visual arts field are things like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and DALL-E and a couple others. And things going on inside the writing community are about GPT-3, ChatGPT, what's the pseudo-write? That's a shell, I guess, of the GPT-3. So the point of the matter is there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and people are kind of losing their minds over things. In my opinion, they're kind of losing their minds. And it breaks itself into two things. I saw actually a series of posts, two or three different posts yesterday, and they all kind of break down into the same thing, where people are worried. Creatives are deeply worried, right? And their dichotomy of their paradox that they put forward is, oh my gosh, these GPT-3s and ChatGPTs and Midjourneys, they're all going to put us artists completely out of business. They're going to kill us. But then the entryway into the conversation is artificial intelligence can't replace a human being. So these two, they're in direct conflict, and you have to decide which one is right. And I definitely fall on the position that a artificial intelligence, certainly the way they are developed right now, cannot possibly replace a human being, right? And that's because oh, my kitty cat wants out. Well, isn't that fun? But anyway, an AI cannot possibly replace a human being. I can't imagine how anyone at this point would disagree with that. But things pare down from there. If you believe that an AI cannot replace a human being, then by definition, that artistic flair that will come from being a human being will always have some kind of value. And if that has value on the marketplace, then, and by value I mean on the marketplace, other human beings will pay to get that value, right? If that value doesn't exist, then yeah, I guess there could be some really super big problems. But as long as that value exists, the problem set changes, the world changes, the things you have to do in order to succeed or fail will be different, right? But then you kind of peel that down. And what I'm really getting down into at this point is where I ended with my last entry, which was, in reality, I was trying to do this every single day, but life intervened, and it turns out I'm a human being and not a computer, not an AI, so I had to step back. Maybe I'll put out more of these later outside of the project. But at the end of the day, the issue that we have here is not an AI issue. The issue we have here is a human being issue, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. We're trying to come to grips with what we mean, what it means to be an artist, what it means to create something, what tools can you use and still be considered to be creative versus this kind of mindset of, well, everything is just a push button, right? And I think that the right answer is much further over to the one side, that you're never going to be a one push button piece of art, right? That doesn't really happen. And that art comes from human decisions and the way we go about putting things together. When you peel this down, right, the next kind of layer down is about stealing, the legal aspect of copyright and so forth. And I've talked about that once or twice. You know, at the end of the day, certainly an AI can steal. I mean, I guess it's possible. It's not really kind of how it works. But if you train it on such a tiny little pool, I suppose that it's more likely it will come up with something that is fairly identical. But even then, is that stealing in certain journalistic mindsets? A human being can steal, an AI can be made to steal, put it that way. At the end of the day, it's still a human being who is behind the AI tool, who is creating stuff. And in a sense, it kind of puts more onus on the prompter to understand the way the tool works. Boy, I'm really kind of rambling around on that, aren't I? That's part of the problem with this, is that you can get yourself twisted around and thinking about things in different ways. And in reality, I'm very excited. For example, a few times back, I talked about the class action suit that's going on. It'll be very, very interesting to see how that plays out for the training aspect of the database. But one of the things that really struck me, and I've been spending a lot more time on this over the past several months for obvious reasons, but one of the things that really struck me at the very beginning is I kind of walked into this with this mindset that, well, the AI training stuff is really akin to stealing, and that the situation wasn't really over, and it isn't over until the lawsuits finish. But when I was talking about that, a established author that I admire quite a bit said something, I was talking about copyright infringement and things like that, and this person said, well, that's not really how copyright works. And I stepped back and I had to think about that a little bit, and at the end of the day, I think that's probably correct, which is why my pessimistic idea in the last, pessimistic viewpoint in the last article, that and many other things, that, the nuts and bolts of copyright, the way I perceive and understand the artificial intelligence to work, it does not seem to me to be infringing upon copyright. Hence, it'll just be, there will need to be a different kind of thing going on than copyright. It's mostly about, I think, ethics and politics and behavior, right? Because if you're a company who's creating these tools, the hard fact of copyright is only one of your elements, right? You can win on copyright. These companies can win on copyright and be okay, not have to pay authors or pay artists or whatever, and still be driven by the marketplace to do something that is more ethical, right? I will always trust a company to not be ethical before it's all said and done, because they will try to be ethical, and they will be ethical as long as times are good. But as soon as things are not good, then their goal is to stay alive. And in ethics, like all human beings, the ethics of that changed quite a bit. And so we talk about the whole aspect of stealing. When a human being steals, it's incredibly obvious, or it can be incredibly obvious, right? And our human systems are set up to properly manage and punish those human beings who steal. Our human systems are not yet set up to deal with the question of the AI. It's kind of a similar thing on like self-driving cars, right? The technology is probably already fundamentally better than what we can do as human beings on driving. Our legal system is way behind. We need to have instances, so our US, at least in the US anyway, we need to have more instances come about so the legal system can deal with all of the ramifications of what it means for an AI-driven car to have an accident. I mean, who's at fault? Everything about our system is trying to find out who's at fault. And we'll have a similar kind of a mindset when it comes to AI and copyright and so forth. If copyright gets infringed, is it the prompter's responsibility? Is it the coder's responsibility? Who's responsible if infringement happens? And I'm talking on the output side here, right? Because you can actually create output that is so close to the original that transformation has not happened, and hence copyright infringement can have occurred. Again, I'm just circling and circling and circling, because we have a human problem. We do not have an AI problem. The AI is defined kind of how it works, even though I only know little pieces of it, right? For example, today I learned in the process of doing a bunch of research, my mindset was, for example, you could take a book and run it through the AI, and it would be able to figure out how to write a book, right? My understanding is that is not how it works now. As of this morning, I have now learned that is not how that works. That the AI cannot handle a book length thing. It can only handle small things, and hence it doesn't have the ability to, today anyway, to go across and truly write a book. So there's misconceptions and so forth. Bottom line, yes, we have a human being problem. Human beings do not really understand what it is that we do. We don't really understand what the AI is doing. That is all fine. I think the real question that I've gotten out of this, the real value that I've gotten out of this project, and thinking about it and looking about it in all sorts of different ways, is that I kind of have classified our human beings into, some people say there's two types of people. Well, maybe there's three types of people when it comes to the AI, right? There's type 1, who are, doomsayers. Things are going to go completely to hell, and all of us are going to be out of jobs. We're going to be destitute, and the world is going to be bereft of our great human capacities and capabilities, and everything will be dreary and dystopian and corporately ugly and blah, right? So that's type 1. Type 2 are perhaps a true middle ground in this, and that is they're really just don't want to pay attention. They're going to do their best to ignore the situation and charge on and make their own stuff and be happy And by gosh, yeah, maybe I'm worried, but I'm not going to pay enough attention, or I'm not going to give my attention to something that I don't care about. I'm going to keep doing my work, and it will succeed or not succeed, however it succeeds, and that will be fine. And then type 3 is a more proactive, aggressive, and maybe I sit between 2 and 3, so maybe there's 4 sets. I am not deeply involved in working with AI. I did a project because I wanted to get my toes wet. I wanted to see how that felt and what happened, right? But there are obviously a growing set. I was going to say a large. I don't think it's large. I think it's a growing set of creative people who are using AI tools beyond the auto fill in from Word and beyond the spell check and grammar check and all these things, which are AI oriented, right? They're not as deep as ChatGPT. They're not as deep as Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, but these people are deeply involved in incorporating the world of artificial intelligence into their lives. So those are kind of the 3 people at the end of the day, 3 classes of people that I want to think about, what I've come up to think about, right? The doomsayers, what's going to happen? The question I'm thinking about is what's going to happen to each of these groups of people, right? The doomsayers, my opinion is they're going to be wrong, which means, depending on who they are and what they're doing, nothing, right? They will most likely be wrong, and then they'll fade off and things will continue as any other controversial big project occurs. They fade away, right? The people in the middle, they're probably not going to have anything happen anyway, because I don't believe that the world is going to fundamentally change. They may be so slow in creating their products that they have a hard time making that, especially mid-list kind of writers, right? Or I don't know what you call that as an artist. I'm not a visual artist, so I don't know the field. That may be harder for them to actually create a living wage because they're working on their own styles and so forth. On the other hand, they will be the artists. They will be the artisanal, high-end reputation, right, as elite, perhaps artists, right? And so at the end of the day, the commercial world of this artistic, creative thing is a very broad one. They could make bucket loads of money. You don't know what's going to happen when you launch something, a piece of art out. And if the world out there changes in such a way as there's an actual competing human and AI driven culture, right? There will all be human beings, there will all be people making these things. But it could well end up being that those folks who decide to not do anything with AI whatsoever and keep the path and all sorts of stuff like that will wind up being just absolutely fine, right? We don't know. And then there's the third path, who are fully accepting of the concept of AI, and what's going to happen to them, right, is most likely they will charge forward and they will find new avenues and new markets and create new ways of creating things. They will probably create new kinds of products, and we'll just see where it goes. That one is a hard one to quantify. It's a hard one to predict because we don't know where the technology is going to go and how it's going to end up being used and so forth. We also do not know how the marketplace is going to look at them, right? It is certainly possible that, that slice of people who follow the market for type 2, the high class artists, fully human, cleanly understood to be working in those fields, They may well kind of look down upon people who are using artificial intelligence in some way or another to help them. But that may just be another classic literature versus genre kind of a mindset. Well, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. What's going through my head is what bucket do I want to be in? After several months of working on this project, thinking about it a lot, what bucket as a creative do I want to be in, right? I definitely do not want to be in number one. I don't want to be a doomsayer, naysayer, because I don't believe in that. I mean, technically there is a sliver of a possibility that listen to me. I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong about all of this. Every single person on the planet can be wrong about things that you're predicting. And the people who are in what I call slice one, category one, right, who are doomsayers, would then say, okay, there's a fourth class, and that's the Pollyanna-ish. Things are going to be just fine as we go over the edge, right? And they would put me in that category probably after all the things that I've been saying and thinking about, which is fair. Whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be in that class. I don't want to be afraid. I don't want to be super worried, right? And even in some of the places where I agree with some of their positions, I'm looking at it and saying, well, really, we're just at the very beginning of AI as a really viable tool, right? AI has a long history. It just hasn't really been viable until now, so the conversation hasn't been worth it. The conversation is now worth it, and I don't want to be that kind of person. The ultimate question is, do I want to stay in this category of I'm not going to ever touch AI at all, which is completely valid. I'm all for that. I think that's there's nothing. There's lots of admirable pieces about that, obviously. And the reality is I'm guessing anyway, we'll go forward in time. I don't intend to use artificial AI art for my standard projects. This was a standalone, let's see what the world will do. I may end up using some AI. I need to actually do some more work. I've played with ChatGPT. I may end up using some AI stuff to help, I'll say, copy edit my work or review my work. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't done that yet. That's probably my next little foray. My point is, I think I want to be more, I want to be this 2.5. The feeling that I get as I go through this, I want to be cognizant of where AI is going and how it can help me. I want to be very, very, very cautious or leery about just jumping in and throwing a bunch of text down, because most of the time I agree with category one, it's not very good. So if I want to be successful in putting out my viewpoint of art, I just can't use that and, plug and chug. If I'm going to use it, I'm going to use it in some way to peak my, peak ideas, right? Figure things out, think about things in different ways and so forth, which is what writers and artists should be doing anyway. When I get feedback from my human copy editor that says you should word it this way instead of that way, it doesn't matter whether that feedback comes from a human or a piece of code. It matters on what I look at and say, okay, I agree with that, I will take it, or I hate that, I will defend my work. That's not going to change. That doesn't, from my frame of reference in doing this work, thinking about it, reading all the different things, that's kind of where I will fall out. So this is a longer, I knew this was going to be a longer video than any of the other ones because it is the final piece. There are all sorts of things that I really do want to fill in, and I probably will go back and do some more later on if I continue my blog video thing, which I'm kind of having fun with. But I think that's really where I fall out. And where do you fall out on that three bucket scale? Yes, finish the class action lawsuit on the training, and there's all sorts of interesting questions on that. I think there will be some kind of, said before, there will probably be some kind of formation of a system by which artists of all kind can opt in and get paid into the training world. I almost view that as trivial. Something like that is going to happen. It happened in the music industry, and we got streaming. Napster came in, it got crashed. We got streaming. We don't really have a Napster kind of thing right now. I don't think anyone is going to get crashed. But I do think there will probably be something that will come about, because companies will want to make sure they are viewed as being ethical in some form or another. And they're going to want to make lots of money. And as soon as they start making lots of money, then they're going to need to share the worth just from a PR and political mindset, not from anything else. So cycling back again, as a creative, I feel like we have kind of three buckets. And I do not want to be in the Chicken Little Sky is Falling bucket. I'm not happy with that. And I think that it's wrong. I don't know that I want to be on the high-end adapters level, because number one, it's a lot of work to figure new things out as I'm busy trying to create my production plan. But I also don't think that I will wind up in the, I think 2 years down the line when I look at myself, I don't really expect myself to be in that cordoned off, segmented area that just says, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to type and I'm going to do everything by hand and by mind and so forth. I can't imagine, seeing the way the tools are generating, I can't imagine that will be the needle pulled way over. The question is, how far will I go? And it's probably a third of the way. I'll probably use it for back-end stuff and helping me make decisions, but I don't know. I don't know. I am not as afraid of AI as I was back in the early days when it started coming in. In fact, I'm not afraid of it at all. I'm really suggesting to all of you, that's my primary suggestion that I will try to end with here. My suggestion is that you try to actually dip your toes into the water, try to actually use it for a couple of things to feel what's different, and pay attention to the world out there and see how you can use it in the way that makes your life work, your creative life work, before that's all said and done. So, long, rambling, final video. If you have been paying attention and watching this, thank you for paying attention to the series. I'm sorry that I lost almost a week's worth of days here. Life is life, and like I said, I'm a human, not an AI. And maybe that is the best way to end this whole series at all, is we need to stay human. We need to be cognizant of artists. We need to help each other. And at the end of the day, that's kind of where it all comes out. Anyway, have a fantastic day. Hopefully I will see you again soon. And I've got to go out and finish writing a book that I'm working on. So, all by myself. Have a great day.